Hello horror hounds, I have joined the Geek Legion of Doom when Leo asked me if I wanted to review a giallo-inflected adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth. Let's just say it was an offer I couldn't refuse. You can normally find me at Grumpy Andrew's Horror House where all are welcome, but the task at hand for the Legion is to review Matteo de Pascali's McBETTER. McBETTER follows Malcolm, our modern day Macbeth, who receives his prophecy of future power not from a trio of witches but from a fortune teller. And when we pull back to reveal that the fortune teller is actually on television and the screen cap says that Visa and MasterCard are welcome, we know that this isn't going to be a straight down the line adaptation of the Scottish play. Malcolm and his partner Melanie make a trip to visit Melanie's estranged father. He is the McBETTER of the title, an industrialist head of a global fast food chain. The rest of the film takes place in Joseph McBETTER's villa compound with these three, the mogul's young trophy wife Patricia and their young son Little Joe. Anyone familiar with Shakespeare's play will understand that the fortune teller's words will set in motion plans of grisly murder. And in the title McBETTER we get the two elements that were mashed together to make this strange little film, Macbeth and McDonald's, really. Fast food consumerism, the industrialisation of meat, and perhaps to a wider degree encompassing Western capitalism as a whole. We open and end with still scenes from a coldly stark slaughterhouse with sides of beef hanging from hooks, but anyone expecting a Texas Chainsaw style philosophy of the abattoir will be disappointed. For the longest time the film's pace is what some might say slow. I found it more assured. Some may get frustrated, but I found I was happy to spend a goodly portion of non-critical time early on in the film with this small cast of strange characters. The film has a kind of drip pace that you might find in some John Waters films where it seems like nothing much really seems to be happening, but you're okay with that to a point. The film is only 75 minutes long, and there was a point where I was waiting, narratively speaking, for the other shoe to drop and was surprised to see that there were only 10 minutes left of the film. McBETTER isn't a full-throated horror film straight out of the gates, meaning that when we get to the Macbeth-inspired murder plot, that turn is a sharp one. You see, Malcolm has designs on his father-in-law's meat empire and his plans for a new source of protein. And those plans, in light of the ecological global disaster that beef farming for food has caused, is a timely proposition and one that I happen to agree with: eating insects. And thematically this film is all about eating, consuming, being the top dog. At a certain point Malcolm says canis canum non est, Latin for dog does not eat dog, and if you want to look for subtext in the film you might perhaps want to flip the title of the Smiths' second album to Murder is Meat. We eat animals, animals eat us. Might we instead eat insects, and when all is said and done we're dead and gone, the insects converge and eat us? Not so much the Lion King's circle of life, but its shadow, the circle of death. When the film takes its turn into murder and the sun begins to set, the change in tone and narrative is expressed best through the film's lighting. Now when darkness comes we get the primary colours, intense blues, yellows, greens and purples, which will be familiar to fans of Mario Bava and Dario Argento. Regrettably, where the lighting goes bending way past the realistic into the expressionistic, the other elements of the film fail to follow. One of the things I adore about Italian horror cinema is that they are never short of a beautiful looking location or building. Point and film and all your money is on the screen. The exterior and grounds of the McBETTER villa here is no exception. They look great and bring to mind a sort of lower rent Godfather type compound. The interior, however, has none of that faded elegance that you'll find in the buildings in the house with the laughing windows or Profondo Rosso. The villa is either a newer building, or the inside was renovated, or the interiors were just shot at a different location. But for all the character of the outside and the grounds, the inside scenes are disappointingly lifeless. Worse, there's little sense of space. This is something typical, I think, of a lot of low-budget single-location movies. Single location out of budgetary necessity, which is absolutely fine, but because you're stuck with the rooms that are to hand, there's very little opportunity to take the viewer through a space. Instead, here's a bedroom, here's a kitchen, here's a hallway, with no real interconnection. This becomes a problem when characters are lurking and hiding throughout the night, or trying to evade capture or kill one another, if you don't know where they all are in relation to one another. The film makes a point of explaining that Joe McBETTER lives far, far away from his stock and slaughterhouses because he doesn't like the smell of his cows. And this is a real shame, because when the film does pivot into murder and mayhem, a push out of the blandly decorated familial home and into an abattoir setting would have made for a welcome change of scene. And the same goes with the performances. I actually like everyone here, but I wanted more. I'm a sucker for a grouchy screen character, so Joe McBETTER is right up my street. I liked the actress who played his wife Patricia a lot. Malcolm is a likeable kind of schlub, and there are moments when we're allowed to see a murderous coldness beneath his amiability. But best of all is Melanie, the estranged daughter turned Lady Macbeth. Her transformation from dowdy and disavowed into a focused killer is shown best of all, but even that in flashes. I wish in the final act, along with the lighting, the film would have leaned harder into any one of these other elements. I'd have gladly seen it dial up the murder, madness, guilt and spectral maelstrom inherent in the Macbeth source material. Shakespeare and Italian art have a long and healthy relationship, and I feel McBETTER warranted an escalation into the operatic. Alternatively, I would have happily seen it push some of the subtext into our faces more. If you open your film with shots of slabs of meat hanging from hooks, I don't think it's out of line for an audience to expect the subtext to become the text at some point. Don't get me wrong, there's murder in McBETTER, there's death, and there are flashes of gore. I suppose after such a sedate opening, which I didn't mind at all, I wanted the denouement to push further and reach the extremes inherent in the source material being adapted. I wanted a crescendo, a final soprano high note, and if I'm being honest, some 3 days after watching McBETTER, I'm struggling to remember exactly how the film ended. So for those reasons, and for want of a final scream in my face flourish of a denouement, I'm going to give this film a solid straight down the middle 5 out of 10.